welcome everyone, and thanks for joining us today for AI adoption for business leaders. So we're going to cover off a little bit around strategy, readiness, and opportunities. My name's Lee Hodson, and I'm joined by our Chief Information Officer, Brad Anderson. Brad's got 25 years plus of experience that's spanning across senior executive roles, board positions, and advisory work across not-for-profit organisations, schools, and businesses. So he's led tech teams and businesses through transformation, growth, and innovation. So plenty of experience there. But as we pretty quickly approach 2026, the business landscape for it's changing rapidly, and AI. I think it's not just front of mind for a lot of us. It's already in a lot of organisations playing a pretty big role in driving, efficiency, innovation, and sometimes competitive advantage in the market. So today we're going to explore what that means for smaller businesses, how we can build a practical strategy, and what readiness really looks like, and I guess the role that sort of plays as well. At the end of the session today, we'll open the floor and have an opportunity for an Ask Me Anything with Brad. So this will be your chance to ask Brad anything that might be on your mind, whether it's about use cases, implementations, challenges, or strategic considerations. So you'll be able to pop those questions into the Q&A section there. So that's a button you'll find at the top of your screen there. But Brad, to kick things off, I guess a good place to start would be, what are the main types of AI that we need to be aware of, and where do they fit in terms of the SMB context? And I suppose, I'll hand over you to take from there.
Awesome, thank you, Lee. So to just kick things off today, we're going to focus on more the practical side of these questions. There's obviously a lot of technical background that we could get into that we're not going to sort of cover as part of this session. It's really about how you should think about using AI in your organisation or your business. So to have a look at the different types of AI from that lens, there are three sort of main types of AI. The first one being generative AI. This is something that's best for creation and ideation. You can do things like create content for coding, communications, scaffolding out documents and reports, and also deep research in some cases. So the common tools that you'll see in this space are things like Microsoft Copilot, ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, Lexity. They're the ones that most people think of whenever you speak about AI. The reason why I said deep research sometimes as well, I'll just sort of touch on that really briefly. Most of those platforms have some version of a deep research feature, and they're really good for doing some kind of comprehensive research to get a working knowledge of how a particular topic might work. So you could look at change management, you could look at financial accounting, or like topics like that. You can use those features to get a really nice summary that will give you a kind of grounding in those areas. But it's always important to keep in mind that while it is good for collating a lot of information very, very quickly, they're often not comprehensive and often need a little bit more context, a little bit more research to be able to use them effectively. But that's something that's sort of come, something that's sort of become more prevalent this year is those deep research features within those platforms. Now, looking at the next type, predictive/analytical AI. These are best for supporting decision making, and it's based off data that you've already got or that you might be able to have access to. So these are things like forecasting results, predicting churn, or your recommendation engines that you might see in things like Netflix or YouTube or any social media platform as well. Now, this type of AI, while with generative AI, it's a very general kind of application in terms of you can use it for many different types of activities or tasks. Predictive analytical AI is very focused on a specific task or a very small grouping of tasks. It does require that data set behind it to be able to predict the result that it's looking to predict. And so they do require quite a lot in terms of the investment and the activity that needs to go into creating that capability within your business or organization. It's much more significant investment than something like generative AI. Something you have to build out over time. You have to have the right data sources and the right infrastructure around capturing, managing, and making sure that data is used effectively. But it's something that can be very, very powerful because And ideally, what you'll be using in terms of data is data that your competitors won't have, things about your business that's unique, or the understanding of your industry that you have that your competitors don't. And it's a way of leveraging that kind of insight, that asset that you've got in the data that you have already. But it does take a lot more investment. It is something that's kind of more on the mature end of the scale in terms of AI adoption. The next type of AI that is commonly used within businesses and organizations is automation. So this is best used for process efficiency. So this is where you might use an AI model, for example, to read invoices as they're coming in, or bills of some kinds, to understand what amounts and the key information that might be present on those documents, and then use that as part of a process automation to to help with accounts payable processing and things like that. Now, these models are generally pretty good, but there is a little bit more training involved in it than something like using an LLM like a ChatGPT or a Copilot. And they do require some level of investment, some level of sitting down and working out what your processes are, how they work, and where to best incorporate the automation as part of that. But they're generally a little bit more accessible. So it's probably a middle ground between the complexity and the investment required for a predictive AI versus the ease of use that you can go and start to use it today aspect of the generative AI. Things like Power Automate can be used as part of these processes to consume something like an Azure AI model that you can use on a pay-as-you-go basis to automate processes. So it's something you don't necessarily need highly technical skills to be able to access and implement, but it does need some level of understanding of your processes and some level of how to structure those processes into an automated way. But again, it's something that can really unlock productivity. You can get your key staff that have use their skills and experience in more productive ways than simply reading documents and data processing and that kind of stuff. So it does unlock quite a bit of capacity from that perspective.
Thanks, Brad. So I guess now we've got a bit of an understanding of what's out there. The next question is, where does this actually hit home for business leaders here today? So I'm wondering maybe, what parts of the organization are most likely to feel that impact first? Is it more operational, customer experience, finance? So maybe could you walk us through some of those key impact zones that we should be looking at?
Yeah. So when you're thinking about how AI can actually make an impact within your business or organization, there are three main kind of ways that are pretty easy to understand and be able to sort of look at in terms of AI adoption. The first is productivity. So this is trying to do the same things that you're doing today, but doing them faster, doing them more efficiently. There's experience, where you're doing things better for customers. So making sure that you've got a higher level of service because AI is either automating or creating a richer experience at an individual level without having to necessarily scale your staff in a way that you would have to otherwise. And then the third area or impact zone is innovation. So doing entirely new things and creating some level of strategic advantage for your organization in the industry that you're in. And so having a look at some examples of AI and how it can be used in those three impact areas. I already touched on this one, but the first one from a productivity space is automating the invoice processing. So using an AI model that can extract the key information from invoices, rate notices, and other documents to streamline and fully or partially automate some AP processes. That's a really good time-saving. Everyone has that sort of problem example of how AI can make an impact pretty easily. And it does take a little bit of investment. As I mentioned before, you've got to sit down and work out what your process is and what technologies could support that particular process. And really go through that, sort of put the effort into go through implementation. But it's something that within a reasonable time frame is accessible for most businesses. As I mentioned before, most of you will be on the Microsoft 365 platform. Power Automate has those capabilities to, for example, look at a SharePoint location, ingest documents from that particular folder, send them out to Azure with image processing or document processing AI model that can then read out or read through those documents, extract the key information, add a new row to a Excel spreadsheet, for example, and then you can use that to import into your finance system or potentially integrate over an API as well. And if you're not in the Microsoft ecosystem, there's other tools like make.com as well that can achieve similar results without needing to know how to code or having anyone technical on staff, really just focusing at the business process level. Looking at an experience example, so one of the applications we're looking at the moment in terms of sort of customer service and integrating with phone systems is a real-time customer sentiment analysis tool. So this uses AI at a platform level to provide a real-time sentiment analysis of customers calling your customer service staff. And the idea here is that it looks at the tone, it looks at the words being used, and identifies when there might be a difficult call happening. And it could be difficult in terms of the customer's upset. It could be difficult as in the customers getting abusive or angry. And so it allows those things to be picked up without having to record, without someone having to listen in on the conversation, and without the person that's your staff member in customer service having to put their hand up and ask for help. Helps you work out that something's going down, and you can sort of work out the best way to deal with that, whether it's turning an unhappy customer into a satisfied customer or stepping in to make sure that staff member has the support that they need. And so, that's something that can be done either in a real time or, after the fact as well, just to kind of make sure that you've got that kind of insights into what's happening in those phone calls. And that's a really good example of I know most people think of customer experience and AI, you think of chatbots and those kind of things that are getting added to websites. Most of those aren't very helpful, but that's a really good way of being able to use AI in a constructive way to create a better customer experience. And the last example I'll give you focused on innovation. And this is something, I tried to pick something that was relevant and accessible for most people. There's a lot of crazy ideas out there and a lot of cool things you can do with AI, but without having to go into anything that's too far out of the box. Something simple like using it for ideation is part of strategic planning. So you can provide basic information about your organization and the key challenges that you're facing at the moment, any growth opportunities you can see. And most of the large language models like ChatGPT and Copilot and Gemini, they have access to lots of information, including things like socioeconomic information about different geographical regions, market trends, what other competitors in your industry might be doing, for example, or trends that I might see in terms of service delivery and stuff like that. So when you're looking at going into your strategic planning, probably in sort of, March or April next year, it might be worth having a look at seeing what information you can get out instead of going out and doing some market analysis and paying lots of money for an external firm to try and tell you any insights or any kind of information about what's happening in the marketplace. You can use chatbots like ChatGPT and Copilot to get some of the information, at least as a starting point, to see where you can't, where you could be doing things differently, or you might be able to add new services, or you might be able to expand into different areas. I remember back when OpenAI released the ChatGPT 4 Omni, they gave the example as one of the new kind of really compelling use cases for that particular model as being, if you're a business looking to expand into Europe and you weren't sure where you should set up your sort of beachhead, your headquarters over in Europe, which city and country would be best to establish that point of presence. You could give it some information about what type of business you've got, what type of services you're offering, what type of people you need to hire, and what your revenue might be expected in that kind of region might be. And it would look at things like typical lease prices, the employment market, and all those kind of factors to determine, okay, here's a short list of 5 candidate cities that you might look to expand to the type of industry that you're looking to target based on all of these different factors. And so it can be used in that kind of fashion to get a really nice starting point when you go into your strategic planning or when you want to start to think about ideas. It's a great sort of brainstorming tool and a great sort of ideation tool from that perspective as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, thanks, bro. That's some really great, I guess, simple foundational wins that can be found in some of those areas. And I guess it's that 90-20 rule in action, right? Like 90% of that value can often come from that first 10% of effort. So, and I suppose moving beyond those basics is where maybe sometimes can get a little bit more tricky. And you've obviously worked with a lot of organizations on their AI journey. What are some of the challenges that you see when businesses start adopting AI, move past some of those more simple sort of things, and what are the sorts of things that maybe tend to trip them up?
Yeah. One of the key things about AI that you need to understand when you're sort of starting on that journey is that what you see is not always what you get, if that makes sense. So there's a lot of things below the surface that you need to really think about and put a lot of time in and sort of effort into understanding. So a lot of the AI tools look great on the surface, but underneath there is that whole new world of risks that you may not be seeing. So you can do some really innovative, compelling, or see some really innovative, compelling examples of what AI can do, but it's very specific one-off use cases where you might see that kind of demonstrated. What you're looking to do when you adopt AI as part of your business or as part of your organization, you need predictability, you need reliability, you need to be able to manage risk. And the reality is that while AI is a very impressive technology, it is still very immature. And even the organizations, the businesses that are building these AI models don't fully understand what it's doing under the hood and can't really measure it the way that you can with, with software as a service, for example, or other technologies. So it is a bit of a black box for most people. Again, even the ones that are doing the work, the billion-dollar companies that are springing up, building these AI models, still fully don't really understand how it works. They know what the box looks like. They know the kind of internal structures of the box, but when they put in something on this side, they don't necessarily know how to predict what's going to pop out on the other side. So they are getting better every day, and it is something that is getting more and more reliable, but we are still in that early stage where it's impressive enough to want to and valuable enough to want to invest time into seeing how you can use it as part of your business, but you do have to walk into that with eyes wide open. And so, even just basic risks like data quality or the quality of the results that you're getting from it, cybersecurity, privacy, just general governance as well, and looking at risk and compliance, they're all areas that you've got to have a serious think about how does AI fit into those key areas. So.
You're right. It's the tools and the cool use cases. That's really just the tip of the iceberg. Underneath, we need to think about what makes it work, data quality, governance, security, and obviously mindset as well for the organization. Brad, how do you how should leaders that are with us today, how should they be engaging or with the idea of using AI?
Yeah, I think the important thing is to have a structured approach in the way that you're looking to adopt it. Fortunately, there are 6 pillars that you can use as sort of a bit of guiding set of principles or guiding areas that you can start to look at in relation to AI to know how to make, how you can go on that journey and build in the right controls, protections, policies, all those things, and capabilities and skills as well. As you kind of go on that journey towards adopting AI as part of your kind of core business. So starting at the bottom here, the first one is ethical, equitable, and responsible use. So it's about establishing the expectations, requirements, and the governance that's required to mitigate the risks of negative or unintended consequences of AI initiatives. There have been lots of unintended consequences of AI. Different examples of that. I know there was one example where Microsoft originally put a version of their very early on Copilot they created a Twitter account where you could interact with their AI, and it very quickly, because it was something that was being fed by a lot of people on the internet, so it started to regurgitate things that Microsoft weren't really wanting it to say. Those kind of things are the unintended consequences that might occur. So having the right protections in place, you wouldn't want your chatbot on your website to start to be able to say things that you wouldn't want it to say. Creating the right sort of controls is really, really important, but also thinking about, okay, cool, we're going to adopt AI. One of the big things we saw as a trend over the last 12 months is this expectation that it's going to replace people. Is that really the way to handle things? Is that really what you want to achieve as part of your strategic plan? A lot of companies have jumped to doing that without really understanding the technology and where it's at in terms of the maturity, and have made decisions to let people go well before it's ready to actually do the job that they're expecting it to do. And so they've kind of made this almost a bet that this technology would play out in a certain way, and it hasn't sort of worked out for them as well as they thought it would. And so there's those kind of things that you need to grapple with as part of adopting AI at any kind of like significant level. The next pillar is strategy and resources. So this is about ensuring that the availability of AI solutions is aligned to your strategic plans. It works as part of your governance model and is considered in that, and has the needed resources to effectively be supported from a strategic and a resourcing standpoint. The next pillar is organization, and this is a really, really critical one. Ensure that AI is embraced at all levels, and that includes culture, roles and responsibilities, and workforce development to enable effective AI solutions. So this is thinking about the people aspect, not just the way that your organization operates, but the people that are part of that structure, making sure that people have the skills to successfully adopt and work with AI, but also decision-making, whatever practices you have in that space, that's also supported. There's a lot of cultural change that needs to happen with AI, which we'll get into in a little bit, about being able to surface from the operational level up to the executive level for decision-making. What are the impacts that are happening on the ground or with the customers in relation to any AI solution that you sort of adopt? How is it supporting processes or not supporting processes? How do you quickly get that feedback loop so that you can easily, make decisions effectively? One of the things that's like, AI is a very, very different technology to anything else that's sort of been, any major technological change, that's happened in the last 20 or 30 years. It's had kind of this element of, we're buying a thing to do a job, and we know that if we onboard this thing, that it's going to do this job, and this is the process that we'll go through to get that embedded in our organization and productive and make it operational. AI is not like that. It's very much a work in progress, and something that is going to change very rapidly as well. And so as each sort of quarter goes by, AI has new features, new capabilities, and you need to be able to set up your organization to not just understand what those emerging capabilities are and how to use them, make use of them in whatever opportunities you can see, but how do you execute and operationalize those quickly, but then also get the feedback as you operationalize them to understand how they're affecting your business. Is it causing growth? Is it causing problems? Do you need to train your staff? It's a much shorter sort of iterative cycle that's going to start to develop as people start to adopt AI more and more. And so being able to adjust your culture and adjust your organization's thinking in that regard is really, really important. So looking at the next pillar, the technology enablers, this is about ensuring that the establishment of the technology enablers, including things like innovation, so thinking about how you use technology in new ways across your business or across your organization. Testing, very, very important one. When you implement something and you go through a process of making sure it gets the result that you expect, there's a whole discipline around that you need to develop. And also just making sure you have the fundamental infrastructure required to be able to produce AI solutions as well. Next pillar is data, and this is about ensuring that AI initiatives have the needed data to effectively and successfully effective and successful implementation. So again, when I was talking about the predictive AI side of things, the data is the important part there. You've got to make sure that you're not only just capturing data that's helpful, but you've got to structure it in a way that is actually aligned to whatever AI solution you're using. There's a whole data engineering practice that needs to be developed if that's something new within your organization. And you might have oversight or the ability to observe things that you're not capturing as data at the moment. So how do you get that objective, like measure what's happening across your organization in new ways so that you can actually have data behind what's going on across your organization to use AI effectively in those situations. And then the last pillar is about performance and application. So this is once you've got everything done and you've got a solution out there, how do you know that it's doing what you expect? How do you know that it's working the way that you expect it to? So ensuring that the effective and efficient development, deployment, operation and maintenance of AI-enabled capabilities. One thing that is different about AI compared to most technologies, you build something in most other cases, like you build a piece of software, it does the job, it works the way it's instructed to. You put something in, it gets a reliable output because it's just a set of instructions. AI is not a set of instructions. It's sort of interpreting and thinking for itself, or at least modeling thinking for itself, under the hood. So you can't necessarily know that you're going to put in something specific and get a specific output. So the other thing is that AI changes over time in terms of the model will learn off the data that it's being fed, and the results can change because it's being fed new and different examples of data. So there is a period of time at which you sort of train up a model and it becomes effective and really good at doing whatever you want it to do. And then as time goes on, it starts to degrade into performance. And so you've got to really understand how that works and have the right processes and procedures in place to handle all of that. And when you're looking at using things like ChatGPT, large language models, that kind of stuff, they're handling a lot of that stuff for you. So that's something you don't have to think about. But if you are looking at using it as a developing a new capability on your own or going into that space where it's not an off-the-shelf kind of AI implementation, these are some of the challenges you need to think. And regardless of whether you're using a third-party service, having that practice around confirming and monitoring the output and knowing that it's still being effective or how effective it's being is really, really important. You need to make decisions very, very quickly to change your approach if needed, if you're not getting the result that you expect. And this is where it's a much more dynamic and adaptive kind of space, if that makes sense. So it is very, very different than most other technologies that you might have adopted in the past.
Yeah, look, obviously thinking about AI is sort of one thing, but then the next part of that is how do we get in that position where we're ready to successfully adopt? So I suppose the difference comes down to, as you kind of touched on there, maturity, but also readiness. So without those foundations, you can kind of get stuck, right? And obviously the ones that kind of manage to scale those projects are the ones that are going to see the much better returns. So maybe it's a good time now to walk through what that sort of path looks like. How do you go from dabbling or exploring with AI to embedding it in a way that actually works?
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, the starting point is always going to be, as with any kind of significant change, is really about re-establishing or establishing, if you don't have it, you kind of North Star to guide your journey. So this is about reflecting on your core mission. Why are you there? What are you trying to achieve? What are your core values? And what's your current strategy for your business or your organization? And make sure that you have that as a clear reference point for decision making as you go forward. This is something that's going to affect so many areas of your business or your organization that you need to be very, very clear and put those front and center. If it's really easy to get caught up in we could just do this or we could do that. Like, there's so much hype around what AI, what the potential is and what it could do. But you've really got to make sure that you've got those kind of core things front and center with everything that you're doing, so that they kind of come as as a bit of a guiding, like I said, a North Star, a guiding principle behind the whole journey that you go on. The next thing, and this is something that some organizations might have already embedded and already be doing relatively well, but and some organizations might have to sort of start to think about this for the first time. But I can't underscore enough how important it is to develop the practice of organizational-wide learning and sharing. The way that AI is going to change, the pace it's going to change over the next 12 months, let alone 3 to 5 years, is going to be significant. And meaning that the mean time between significant advancements is going to become shorter and shorter and shorter. Most AI companies are looking at releasing multiple big iterations or multiple big versions every year. And the plan is that they're going to develop the AI to be able to build the AI. So it's going to, like, as they get more sophisticated at being able to do that, the way that AI is going to change is going to be exponential in terms of what it can do and how quickly it's going to change and all that kind of stuff. And so this is an area where most people are going to struggle to keep up if they're not keeping their finger on the pulse. And it's impossible when you think about just the logistics of someone at an executive level being able to keep a very firm eye on the practical operational impacts of something like AI on a day-to-day basis. The way that most organizations report and track and monitor, it won't scale the way that AI is going to cause change. So being able to develop that practice now is going to make a huge impact in what you can do in 6 months' time, in 12 months' time, in 3 years' time. And so the goal here is to really create this new practice and capability around exploring something, whether it's a technology or anything else, learning from that, and being able to share that learning across all levels of your organization so that you can drive decision-making. AI is not going to be something you can make a decision at a top level and roll it out like you have been able to with other technologies. Like, just even think about something that most organizations have to do at some point, roll out a new CRM or an ERP system. If you're a big enough organization, you're probably going to need maybe 6 months, maybe 12 months, maybe a couple of years to go through a big technology change like that. AI is going to be in a very, very different place in 12 months, let alone 2 years. So you don't have that luxury of going through a requirements gathering process and working out what everybody needs and then sort of looking at how you're going to implement it and then going through that normal process. It's a different problem. It's going to behave in a different way and it's going to affect your organization in a different way. So building that capability now is going to be really, really key and important, and allowing that sort of transparent, integrated decision-making and sharing kind of approach is going to be really, really key. And so once you've kind of got that sort of, that practice in place and you're starting to move forward, you need to find a way to measure your readiness in a way that's structured. Now, I mentioned the 6 pillars before. Behind those 6 pillars, there's multiple dimensions that sort of sit as kind of areas that you can look at measuring to understand, okay, what capabilities do we have as an organization or a business in that particular dimension, and how, what does good look like in that space? Where are we at in relation to that? So using a framework that allows you to measure your readiness and maturity as you progress along your journey towards adoption is really, really key. Getting that ability to say, okay, cool, here's the next set of activities, because this is not something that you're going to be able to develop overnight, and it's something that's going to change over time very rapidly. And so it's a process that it literally is a journey. You're not really looking to within a 60-day period or a 6-month period go from no AI to everything AI or all AI. It's a discipline that you're going to have to build across your organization. It's going to be something that you need to be able to measure that you're being effective at. And so having a framework will kind of give you that kind of structure that you need. And then once you've gone through that process of adopting a framework or using a framework to assess where you're at today, you can then start to define a strategy and a roadmap for adoption, looking at developing a clear strategy and roadmap that addresses the gaps that you find, improves your maturity, and builds the organizational-wide capabilities. So you might have really strong, privacy, governance, risk controls, but you might need to boost up your organizational development area of your business, or you might need to think about how you go through testing better, or you go through, all those kind of things. So once you've got that sort of benchmark or that sort of starting point mapped out using a framework, it's about really looking at, okay, what's next? And, you can have these sort of longer term goals about, or ideas about, or strategies about where you want to go and how AI can play a role in that. But in terms of developing out okay, what do we need to do right now to get up to the next level in all these areas, and target that into that strategy, that roadmap into where the effort's going to be most effective and most beneficial for your organization as well, because it is like AI is something that, again, changing all the time, but it's something that people are still grappling with understanding, and it's going to be different for every industry and different for every business depending on what size you are and your customer base, all those kind of things. It's really something that you kind of need to be able to have a way of, okay, how do I need to make sense of this, or how can I make sense of this for us? If that's really what you need to be able to do. And so going through that process of really just having that kind of guiding principle, developing the practice of sharing and learning, measuring where you're at, and then developing a plan of what you can do next is really the best starting point.
Thank you, Brad. That was insightful. So it's really great, and I think it's really not just about the tools, is it? It's really about building that foundation that covers everything from readiness, your strategy, and also importantly, as you just touched on, it's building capability across the organization as an ongoing thing. We will get to a Q&A in a sec, so please, if there are any questions, you can pop them into the Q&A button there. But for those of you that are kind of thinking about, well, what's the next step, or where do we start, we'd really love to help. So Brad runs what we call an AI maturity assessment, and we are making a few of those available to some of the attendees today. So if you are interested, please get in touch. Basically, what the assessment entails is it's based on a framework known as the MITRE AI maturity framework. And what this framework does is it gives you really clear guidance and recommendations for building that foundation for AI adoption across the organization. Really good way to understand your current state, identify gaps or risks, and create that roadmap for safe and strategic adoption. So like I said, if you want to explore that, please reach out. Or for those that are looking for more ongoing strategic leadership, Brad also delivers our CIO as a service engagement. So this is a different service that provides his expert guidance to help your organization develop and execute on your broader AI and technology strategy across the organization as well. So again, you want to know more about that, please reach out. So as we do get into questions, Brad, I'm wondering just how far can we really go with AI? It seems to be, one of those things, there's lots of potential, but it does make pretty simple mistakes. What does that really mean if we're, basing business critical decisions on it?
Yeah, I would say that AI is at the stage now, and it's going to change all the time, but it's definitely at a stage now where I would be careful about putting it somewhere that's directly customer facing or directly externally facing. It's really good to help you get to that starting point, but I wouldn't rely on any decisions it makes, if that makes sense. It's really something that I see AI as abstracting, like quite often what you need to do as part of your, multiple roles within any organization is there's a bunch of work that you need to do to analyze and work out what decisions need to be made and what the potentials are, what the options are, and all that kind of stuff. And then you need to sort of take off that hat and put on the hat of, okay, what should I do now? Like, how do I make an effective decision about this? AI is very good at getting information together and being able to present it in different ways. And you can use that as a way of kind of abstracting the analysis work or the information gathering work or the research work, however you want to look at it, from the decision-making process and take that kind of more oversight role in that task and allow you to kind of exercise your judgment a bit more cleanly, because you've got some objectivity between, because you're not the one that's done the work, if that makes sense. So it's that separation of duties kind of thing. It's really good for, like I said, getting off the ground and getting to a point where you can start to make those decisions. But I definitely wouldn't want to be allowing it to go and make decisions in any significant way at the moment. So, I mean, that's just a general comment. There's lots of specific use cases where it might be a little bit different. Like, for example, a recommendation engine, it's making a decision about what content to put in front of people. That's a pretty low risk thing to do. So, people might get frustrated and they might think it's bad, but you'll hear about that. And that's why when you look at, any social media platform, they're tracking what you watch and what you don't, and they're refining that constantly. There are cases like that where it's kind of okay to use in that context, but if it's a critical business decision, 100%, let it do the heavy lifting for you, but own the decision yourself and use it as a way of freeing you up to make a better decision.
Yeah, absolutely. It's obviously checking and guardrails. We've got a question here. So the question is probably something that's probably on a lot of people's minds is, how can smaller organizations implement meaningful AI oversight without kind of building an entire compliance team just to look after that?
I think the important thing is it's about having those open conversations across the staff. So you don't need a whole compliance team to sit there and think, okay, how are we going to measure this? How are we going to formalize this? How are we going to, all that kind of stuff. It can be a simple conversation as having a conversation about, okay, we want to use AI in this way. What are the risks of doing that? What do we need to protect ourselves against? What are the things that we want to achieve with it? How reliably do we think we're going to achieve that? So it's something that you need to sort of scale appropriately with the organization that you've got. And maybe the easy way to start doing it is just look at tasks that take up a lot of time, or whether it's taking up a lot of time in terms of just on an ongoing basis, or things that kind of distract you from what you really need to focus on. And have a conversation about, okay, well, let's all try and find ways where we can use AI to help us in these kind of types of problems, and then keep that conversation open, check back with everybody and see what different creative ways people find to do that, learn from each other, and adopt what's working and change things if it's not working. It doesn't need to be more complex than that. But as long as you start to establish that, okay, let's have a realistic conversation about this, and let's try and think through the complete problem, not just the, hey, we want to do a cool thing, let's do a cool thing, and how can we do cool things? That sort of thinking leads you down what I call the happy path, the path of the confirmation bias path. You need to be able to sort of have conversations that take care of the risks, take care of the potential problems, and all that kind of stuff. And it's important to, if it's going to fail quickly, recognize it, adjust or abandon and move on. Like, don't try and get too far down, like trying to make it work too hard. Those kind of things are really important. And in a small organization, I would imagine there's probably a lot of, depending on what you do and the nature of what everyone's roles are, but there's probably a lot of things that you can do more effectively just by getting some of the heavy lifting done by AI, particularly if it's an office-based kind of work as well. So I wouldn't stress too much about needing an entire compliance team. Just focus on working through things together, and if there's stuff you don't understand, find a way to bridge that gap, and do some research on those areas, whether it's privacy or those kind of things. Just be aware of what your obligations are, and then just have open conversations about it.
Absolutely. And last one, just before we wrap up, there's a question about just expanding on, I think you mentioned APIs earlier. I think just referring to different systems talking to each other. So I'll let you clarify that. Yeah.
Yeah, so an API is just, so most people consume technology or software in a software as a service kind of delivery method. That's how Office 365 works and Microsoft 365 environment works. It's how most platforms work. most of those platforms have some sort of API, and an API is just a way of different software platforms being able to talk to each other. So it stands for Application Programming Interface. It's a way of one system being able to reach out to another system and give it some information so it can then go and do what it needs to do. And in the context that I was talking about with, processing invoices and being able to using AI to get the key information off the invoice, and then potentially using an API to put that into your accounting system. If your accounting system has an API that something like Power Automate can already access, then you can potentially just have the information read off the document, put straight into your accounting system or your finance package, whatever it is, and then no one has to do anything. The other way you can do it is by having it put into an Excel sheet, and then most finance packages or accounting systems will be able to import an Excel sheet from there. So at a really high level, it's just the way that systems talk to each other. In that example, it's sort of removing the need for someone to do the next step. So.
Very, very good. Thank you for explaining. And look, that does bring us to the end of today's session. So again, Brad, thank you so much. And thank you to everybody who joined us today. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.